Okay, I'm going to pause this. We'll be right back. Thank you. Okay, this is Ed in San Diego, and this is the San Diego skyline taken from a helicopter looking down at the convention center area, and of course the downtown buildings and the hotel district. And this is on San Diego Bay, which is of course part of the Pacific Ocean. You cannot see it, but just behind my head, over that way, is the mountains of Tijuana, Mexico, which is just 8 miles down the road. So just to give you an idea of the binational area here. And sticking out into the bay is a recreational area that contains parks, paths, and the Symphonic Center, which is behind me there. It's a beautiful open air concert venue. And all of that was built by some very wealthy people, zero tax dollars to do all that. So the area is blessed. We're blessed today to have this lovely person to be right here on this screen, Mehibe Hill in Barcelona. Thank you again for being with us. This is not your first time on the program, and I welcome you back.
Thank you very much for having me, Ed. It's wonderful to be back sharing this space with you, fresh new year, and it's always a pleasure to be in this space with you. So thank you for inviting me back.
Yes, and part of this today is to recognize you with the Global Business News Communicator Award. And in my role as editor, I get to meet you and several other people, and several people will receive this award. And rather than in the past, like we did a big deal with many people winning for several reasons on one big broadcast, say 15, 20 people, this is going to be different from now on. We're doing the rollout of the awards during January, and it may continue into Feb, maybe even beyond, of individuals having their own time, microphone and video and audio and note takers, recording what we say about what you do and how you do it. Now, I was really touched earlier today by what you posted on LinkedIn, uh, and I read it into the microphone a few minutes ago before you arrived as an introduction to this program. The fact that you're taking some time to learn more about uh, trauma in the workplace and the impact of people. This is really serious.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes. Mm. Say something.
Yeah. No, I'm just reflecting that it is serious, and for me, it's something that I've been interested in for a long time. But also, I'm reflecting that it's something that's happening in silence across workplaces, organizations across the globe. And the reason why I've been drawn to it is because my clients who are senior leaders in their positions, they are suffering in silence. And these are incredibly talented individuals. I do coach both men and women, but they're primarily women. And what I am seeing is that really good coaching is about healing. And when we think about showing up with confidence and being true to ourselves, I'm a big advocate of vulnerability. I'm a big advocate of being authentic and feeling good in your own skin. Whatever role you hold, there is a lot of trauma that we hold, and we need to heal in order to be able to show up authentically and in a real way. And it's not about pretending, it's about coming through, overcoming something that has been a very, very difficult experience. And I would almost say that I was called to it, or it called me because of the work that I'm doing. And because I set up an online women's self-leadership group coaching program, we do a lot of work around identity, self-worth, confidence, building inner confidence and trusting ourselves. And unfortunately, a lot of that is broken by other people. We don't break from the inside. We break from people exerting their power over us on the outside. And so I felt that this was really important. And anybody who knows me, who works with me, my ultimate core value is integrity. And so my work is developing in this way. And I know that I need to get stronger in how I support my clients to heal and be their best version, be their truest versions. And so yeah, I'm going back into the classroom for 3 months to do an intensive ICF accredited professional training, which will allow me to be on the boundaries of therapeutic coaching as well as, sorry, therapy as well as coaching. So it can be seen as therapeutic coaching. So that will allow me to do much deeper work with my clients. I feel that I'm doing deep work already, but it will allow me to learn a lot more, and then apply potentially different ways that I can support clients to heal. So it's going to be a real journey, real learning journey, and I'm really excited about what I'm going to learn and how I can then translate that learning into the coaching.
Thank you for that. So I want to do a little background with you first before we go forward, okay? Um, are you now a member, a coach with ICF?
Yeah, so I'm an ICF accredited coach. I'm a PCC coach, which means I have over 500 coaching hours. I have way more than that, but yes, I am an accredited ICF coach. And I also train. I'm also a trainer and a mentor, which means that I'm training other people to become ICF coaches as well. So that's my other role that I have. So I'm very familiar with what it really means to have fundamentally solid training as a coach, because anybody can call themselves a coach. Unfortunately, it's still unregulated. So you can have that label, you can advertise yourself as a coach, but the ICF accredited route, it's the gold standard. So you have an equivalent in the UK and Europe, but the ICF is the true founder of professional coaching.
Interesting. So let me ask you a couple of questions about the work you've been doing the past year or two since we've developed a relationship. Uh, so this is taking it to another level, higher level, right?
Mm, So for sure, I mean, I would probably say that most coaches will say that their work is expanding, broadening, going to a deeper level. My expansion of services has always been around partnering with clients in their leadership roles, but that also can have a boundary with their identity and also their personal life as well. Even in leadership and mindset coaching, when you're supporting senior leaders in their role within the workplace, there's always an overlap into the boundary of personal life or into the boundary of doing a lot of identity work. So I do partner significantly with senior leaders who want to build their confidence, but also overcome. We talked about it before in previous calls around overcoming imposter syndrome. How do you build self-worth? How do you rebuild confidence when it's been knocked to the floor? And so this new training around becoming a trauma-informed coach is building on the work that I do with my clients, which is truly about connecting with identity, building confidence, and overcoming that voice of self-doubt to be able to embody and breathe and live the voice of truth, or our own truth. So this is building on the work that I've been doing, and it's necessary. Unfortunately, Ed, it's necessary. I've got spoken to dozens of people in the last few months since I first posted about workplace mobbing, which is where we have gangs of individuals that will bully a person at work. And it was shocking to me how many people reached out to me individually to say they had experienced this. So there's a need, we're not talking about it enough, but there is a need to support these humans, men and women, to work through the impacts of going through such a traumatic experience.
So I've got a couple of questions to zero in. Uh, who is doing this? Is this in companies having more than 1,000 employees, or this is in smaller shops?
Great question. What I'm observing is it's happening in larger organizations. And unfortunately, it's easier to hide when it's in a bigger outfit. I've worked for startups, small medium company, and I've worked for a huge global organization with 120,000 employees. And my experience of working in a startup or a small organization is that when you share this, that something untoward is happening to you. I'm going to say generally it's dealt with. Um, However, when it's in a bigger organization, the who is the perpetrator, who is responsible for causing this harm, it's not sitting within a specific function, but what we are seeing is that unfortunately, a lot of individuals that work in specific HR roles are covering it up or trying to find a way around it. And it's not something that the board or C-level is dealing with themselves head on because they have people to do that for them. And so it becomes this sort of dirty secret that is kept within the organization. And, I have clients who still 2 years on are trying to find some peace and justice for themselves based on the experiences that they've had. We look to HR to take care of us, but unfortunately, the majority of HR individuals or within certain organizational outfits are acting in the best interests of the organization. And even in somewhere like Germany, where they have a works council, it still isn't totally independent. The work council is supposed to act on behalf of the individuals, but the head of the work council reports directly to the head of HR, so that it can't be truly independent. So what I'm seeing is that we have a systemic issue, and I do wonder whether we need to regulate. Do we need to bring in stricter regulations about having an independent functional entity within organizations over a certain number of employees that have to, their mission, their role and aim is to serve in the best interests of that person. I mean, I'll be honest that I had a phone call today that was truly disturbing where one of my clients one of my old clients was taking care of somebody else in the global mobility space, and they're truly suffering with their mental health and emotional health. And just because you leave the organization after you experience this doesn't mean that it stops. And so you can be dealing with the impacts of that for a very long time. So the who is a very, very good question, because we then get to that point of this being a systemic issue. And the only way we're going to solve this is if we find another way of taking care of employee interests. And unfortunately, I don't feel that HR as it's the function and in its entirety at the moment is truly serving the function and the mission that it was set up with.
There's a lot to swallow there. Okay, let me ask you about assigning blame. And I mean, this is a can of worms. I mean, it's actually
Mm,
explosive. It's more than a can of worms. It's dangerous because you're probably witnessing somebody saying like, "Well, who are you?" and "Who are you to
mm,
accuse me of this?" and "What are you doing here doing this? You don't belong here. Get out." And this is, you know, down the hall in a quiet place. So nobody else is hearing this kind of confrontation. I'm just imagining that that goes on.
mm, mm.
And so how do you
One
deal
thing I want to,
with it? That
yeah,
that is something that's trauma and that's dangerous. And that probably happens frequently. And maybe un, un non understood slights can blow up into something else. It depends on reaction and things like that. I really don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm just imagining that would go on.
mm, mm. And you know what you're talking about. I mean, it's the this the offhand comments, it's the sleight of hand, it's the sneaky things, and it can be very direct behaviors as well. Um, and it's the culmination. I feel that we need to be clear that, sometimes we have a bad day and we might say something a bit, offhand or not quite our best behavior or not quite our best response in a situation, but we're talking about intentional cause of harm over a significant period. So there is a pattern of this poor behavior and it is directed towards the same individual. And I've had a few people contact me recently and say, oh, you're apportioning all the blame to HR and you're attacking HR. And it's not about assigning blame to anybody. However, there's too many examples to ignore. And I think that's what we need to acknowledge here is that we're not trying to blame. We're not trying to say, oh, it's your fault. But ultimately, these poor behaviors over a significant period of time that become a pattern, this is happening way too often. I've experienced it myself, and the majority of my clients are experiencing it at some point because we do so much work around unrooting belief systems, right? To let go of unserving beliefs and unserving behaviors because we try to protect ourselves. So this is coming up in all with all my clients in the work that I'm doing. And unfortunately, a lot of humans, a lot of people are being let down by the system that was set up to take care of them. And unfortunately, some of the worst examples I've heard is coming from HR. And it's shocking. I myself have just found that the last 3 to 6 months of because I've been posting more about it and hearing stories. I could give you examples where it's coming up in the police force. It's coming up in the system that's supposed to be taking care of us in organizations that are set up to protect humans. So not just functions, but the sectors themselves. And so it's rife. And to say that, this isn't happening or it's not as bad as we think, I challenge that. And we need to do something about it. I can't do something about it on my own. But we need to take this more seriously. And so we need the leadership at the top to I'd say start a revolution. And we need to do something about this. And the people that are responsible need to face consequences because at the moment there are no consequences for those people. They're protected.
So let's talk about how you got into this. Your background and your earlier involvement has been with taking care of transferees. because it's a traumatic circumstance for many people. Being the interpersonal relationships of taking a spouse and kids into a new country or a new place, and they don't know anybody, and there's nobody there to greet them typically, and there's what about this, what about that, and there's a lot of tension, and the transferee is always the outsider, tough to make friends. That's your background, right? And now you've found that there's a whole other world beyond that. Is that correct?
Mm, halfway there. So my background, where I started in global mobility was that I come from management consultancy, so I was running an in-house HR and global mobility program, very extensive in a very large organization globally. And I was working alongside HR and global mobility um, for a number of years implementing this program. And one of my partners, my vendor partners at the time, was an immigration firm. And so after, I wouldn't say completing this program because it was ongoing, but after I decided to take on a new challenge, I then took a role with our vendor partner who said, "Why don't you come and join us? Because you know this would be a great opportunity." So I was the director of client services for EMEA for a large immigration firm. And so global mobility were my clients, but of course, um, our end client was the employee and their family, their partner, their family, their children. And I've done a lot of research myself around the assignee experience. I've presented workshops, and I have extensive learning on, as an example, my GMPD portal because I was their partner as part of the Expat Academy. So I've spoken to a lot of global mobility experts and professionals around how we can improve the assignee experience, but also the assignee partner experience, because unfortunately, we're not doing enough to take care of their needs. Um, so once I had, long story short, once I had moved to Barcelona and I handed in my notice on the last permanent role, which was director of client services, I trained as a coach and I pivoted back into the global mobility world because I understand the global mobility world, and I can see that there's some very necessary and good work that we need to do to support leaders within the global mobility teams that function to then help the assignee experience. So I'm based in Barcelona, so I do have expats that I support locally within my coaching work, but primarily my coaching work is about supporting the senior leaders who are running global mobility teams.
So, in this space that you're entering, you're in it already, but now we're really going deeper into it. Who's your client?
So it's the same individuals that my clients are still senior leaders within the mobility space. So head of, director of global mobility. I also support CEOs or owners of immigration firms, relocation companies as well, because I have eyes across the entire journey, entire across the entire process. So my end client isn't changing. It's just that with my training now, bringing in trauma informed work, it will allow me to hold a stronger space for traumatic experience and know how to deal with that. Because when we train as coaches, we're veered away from anything that's relating to therapy, anything that's relating to the past. So essentially, this gives me the integrity and the professional capacity to go deeper and know when to signpost. I mean, I would say I know this already, but it just allows me to have more tools and a stronger assurance in how to manage that boundary between therapy and coaching. And my clients would say, I have a very therapeutic way of coaching already, which is why this feels like a great alignment for me in how I'm developing my coaching. But I have clients who will do therapy and they will come and do coaching with me. We need both. We need to heal and we need to find a way to move forward. So this allows me to strengthen the capacity to heal and support clients to move forward and to grow.
So conflict resolution is a key thing.
And communication. One of the biggest killers of confidence is biting down on our tongue and not saying what we need to say. The more you swallow and swallow your words, you swallow a part of yourself that needs to come out. And if you're not using your voice and you're not speaking your truth in whatever capacity that is, then you are holding back parts of yourself, and it can be very easy over time to lose sight of who you truly are. And it's a very powerful journey to find your voice again and to communicate. And when you can communicate, you can find ways to navigate through what we refer to as conflict resolution. But conflict resolution is, for me, about communicating in a way that is authentic, feels true. This is what I need to say without it exploding, without I am a huge advocate of emotions, but when we communicate with emotions taking over, that's when we can lose control of the content of what we want to say, which is really important. So if we can communicate effectively and feel authentic and real in what we're saying, even when there's fear of the repercussions, judgment, disconnect, not being liked, that's true vulnerability. And so we can manage through these situations that we refer to as conflict resolution.
Okay, so we've been talking about a half hour now, and we could end now, or we can continue another 10, 12 minutes or so. Um, I know your time is precious. This is
Yeah, I'm happy to continue another 10 minutes and if that's good for
I
you.
want to talk about confidentiality, and it seems obvious that there have
Mm,
to be agreements. If your client is accusing a workmate of something, to me, I'm an outsider, yeah. So, but to me, that sounds like it's explosive, um, and damaging within the organizational structure. And people, let's just say, in an organization where there's people around and people interactions, this is normal. Most people are strangers. They have their work life and they have other life, and and everyone's got responsibilities, right? And so nobody really wants to have hurt. They want to have life. They want to have productivity. They want to be recognized. They want to get a raise. Okay. And to accuse someone of, you hurt me and I'm going to hurt you, or, this is where you step in and you prevent that from happening, right? Because your client is the company, not the employee. Or is it the other way around? Or it could be both.
mm. It's the other way around.
What other way?
So I do have B2B, but it's primarily B2C. So it's the individual who will approach me to have coaching. And truly I would also say that I don't get involved in anything that happens between the employee and their employer. But confidentiality remains in the space of coaching. I don't research anybody's names, they don't they don't give names. It doesn't really work in that way. Maybe it might be a first name, but we don't talk about them as an entity. We talk about how the client is processing the experience, what it is that they want to achieve by the end of our time together, having space to reflect and go and investigate and explore what is happening to them and what it is that they need in this time. So my role is not to be a mediator or to get involved in anything between the employee and the organization. And I would say that even in my role where I have my end client is the company, so I'm coaching their employees. The confidentiality still applies, confidentiality within the coaching boundaries. Yes, we meet on Zoom, nothing's recorded. Even notes or anything that would be passed between myself and the coachee, everything stays between us. So it's it's a pillar, you know, it is a pillar of the coaching relationship, the boundaries of professionalism as well. And also it's not for me to judge the employer. My role is to be in service and partnership to the coachee, and the coachee has a role within, is an employee, has a role within the organization.
So I think what you're doing is really valuable, but I can imagine that there is a lot of ways that it could bite you, and whilst not helping the person who has a problem.
Say that again, Ed. Did you say that it could bite me?
Yeah.
Could you just expand a bit
Well,
more what
that
you mean by that?
yeah, sure. Well, what I'm sorry. What I'm saying is that you are going to be in the middle of a fight, or in the middle of a misunderstanding, and you're, I'm sure, well intentioned 100% of the time, but the person who's a target of the complaint, the 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 one who caused or is accused of causing an issue,
Mm.
accused of causing a hurt
Hmm.
that's impacting, let's just say it's me, and I'm the one who's been hurt, perceived.
Mm.
All right. And I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable being in the room in or nearby. And here's this other person who's waltzing along, and they're the ones who hurt me. So wouldn't, this is hypothetical, wouldn't I
Mm.
want to solve that problem quickly and uh, non-violent way?
Mm. Mm.
Emotional violence, never mind whatever might happen. Like, why are you doing that to me? What is this? And who are you to do that to me? That kind of a thing. I mean, this is a potentially mushrooming, development, a development that nobody wants, but it could certainly can happen.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. It I wish it was as simple as somebody in that situation, you said that you would be the person who has been hurt, and sometimes coaches would describe themselves as victims or the abusee. Um, wish it was easy for them to challenge the behavior. But unfortunately, we are now exploring power dynamics. And when these comments or poor behavior, and I may refer to that some of that behavior is gaslighting, you know, making it seem as though it's the other person's fault or they're not performing properly. You know, there's very manipulative ways that we can make somebody feel like they're not capable, and over time erode someone's confidence and their sense of reality, because that's something that I hear very often. And I felt it myself. you lose a sense of reality, and that can be really scary. Is it me? Actually, am I the problem? Maybe I am the problem and it's not the other person. Maybe this is all in my head. But unfortunately, when you've got an abuse of power, especially through hierarchy, it's very difficult to speak up, or it's very difficult to find a resolution without feeling like your role is under threat. And, people need their livelihoods, they need to pay rent or their mortgage, they need a way to live. And so we do live in fear of losing our jobs if we speak up or if we challenge the system. So that's why I come back to we need to find a space within the people function where it's safe, where it's psychologically safe for somebody to share something. And wouldn't it be a wonderful result if we could get this earlier so that we're not allowing this to happen over a longer period and find a resolution for the situation? And if that means separating this person from the situation or holding accountable poor behaviors or both, and there are other options here, that would be a much better result than what I have seen and experienced myself, where it could be over 12 months or 18 months. And so if you're going through that day in, day out, and you end up blaming yourself, it's I wish that people had that inner confidence that you just said, oh, Mike, hang on a sec, why are you doing this? Or how come you're behaving like that? I wish that could happen more often. But as we know, a lot of humans, we're really scared to talk. We're really scared to say stuff out loud and speak our truth. And it's understandable if we have a fear of losing our job or not getting that promotion or not getting that salary increase, right? That's what you said earlier. This is
So,
what we want. We want to be recognized. We want to be promoted. We want to get that salary increase, or we want to progress our career. And being a nuisance, being annoying is, as a perception, that's not a great place to be. So we people please and we just stay quiet.
we have about 8 minutes remaining, and I say that to not squelch anything, we just so to plan of zipping up this thing and what to do with it. First of all, you use the word gaslighting, and that's become a political term. So, what's your definition of gaslighting? Because it's not clear. Is it lying,
Yeah.
faking, not telling the truth, using words that make whatever you're talking about, who knows? What does that mean, gaslighting?
Mm. All of what you just said. From my perspective, what I would term as gaslighting is somebody who says something intentionally, knowing it is an untruth, in order to bring about the feeling or a mindset shift in somebody else that is based on a lie and untruth. That they know it's a lie and untruth, and I think that is the
It's a lie,
important part here.
lie.
Yeah.
Okay, because we see this in the news,
Um.
in the political news.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so now another thing, is it normal that if you are hired, that all of that goes into the company personnel record?
What do you mean? I don't know actually. I don't
Well,
I don't work
if,
in HR.
if you file if
Yeah.
let's say me, I'm an employee and I feel slighted and I feel terrible and I'm having mental problems because of that employee over there,
Yeah.
that becomes part of the employment record.
Hmm.
Employment record may not be confidential.
Hmm. Theoretically, it should be confidential to the people that have access to it, and not everybody in the people function or HR will have access to it. But yes, there are boundaries of confidentiality.
So you're taking on a lot of responsibility. It, I think what you're doing is helpful, and My business, for the audience out there in the world watching this thing days and weeks beyond today, I'm in the public relations business, which means media relations, which means managing what is said.
Mm,
Bottom line, managing what is said or not said or intended, and then the portrayal of that. And that is what I do, that kind of situation. And that's where I'm coming from when I'm asking
mm,
or saying these things, because I think what you're doing is beautiful. And the way you portray it on particularly LinkedIn is helpful and very comforting thing for employees and people in general to know that there's a caregiving element there that is cool and apparently needed. And yet the other side of the coin is that, wait a minute, am I going to have a job tomorrow if I report this?
mm.
That is a major fear element. So I congratulate you for wanting to upgrade your apparently already superb skills uh, to get to this far, get to this point. Uh,
Thank you.
the
Appreciate that, Ed. Thank you.
It's really important because this is a dangerous thing and yet extremely helpful. Now there are psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists doing this in their medical practice, um, and you you are you have an advantage because you're on the inside anyway, and you see what's going on, and your work in these her, be her. I think that's brilliant marketing, um, because so many people and uh, women, for the most part, I think, but guys also
Mm,
are suffering, quote unquote, uh, from the imposter syndrome of where you're afraid to do something because you don't want to be seen a certain way, and so you don't do anything. And so a situation lingers. And I think your marketing of that product or whatever you want to call it, I see it as a product, to help people understand that they don't have to be trapped in that
mm,
cage, if you will, this mental cage, that it's okay. Like for instance, if I have a situation whereby I'm not a tech and like computer tech or how to make the new Microsoft work better, uh, and yet I'm afraid to say things to somebody because I would be afraid of being seen to be stupid or not able to do things or not smart enough to ask for help. Uh, you're just jumble of things going on that are preventing execution from happening. That would only be helpful to the person, and so the imposter syndrome takes on these self-hurt things.
mm,
Sure, you see that. And so you help people counter that, right? And so that has grown into this high stakes position that you're getting special training for coming up. I think it's
mm,
a terrific idea for you to do that. And obviously, there's a need. And the impact of the spouse, of the partner, and kids, if they're dragged along on an international assignment, there's so much disruption and so much hurt and anxiety that I would imagine in most transferee households behind closed doors, it's not a happy time if there's no consultancy offered and friendship, not to be a spy about what's going on in relationships behind closed doors, but it certainly can be viewed that way or abused easily. So, what you're doing, I think, is extremely important for people in the mobility business because you're touching on human lives and, that what it used to be, and everybody seemed to ignore it on purpose. I think now that we have this knowledge, it was don't interfere in the personal side. Don't talk to me about it. Just get the job done.
Mm,
But now
mm,
it's becoming important because a disruptive situation behind closed doors is going to impact work productivity
mm,
and will blow up. And that's going to cost the company a lot of money. So they
mm,
prevent it. And that's why you have an opportunity to help companies as well as help individuals. And I think the people to people thing has to be managed properly.
mm.
And who's doing the managing? Is it HR? Probably, because that's give it to HR. Leave me alone.
Mm. That's the great question is who is the ultimate accountability point in an organization to take care of their people? And from my perspective, it needs to come right from the top.
But does it?
So C-level, they need to be accountable for what is happening inside their organization. And if they don't have eyes on it, then something is not right. And they need to address that.
And so, yeah, so that's the business rationale for you and what you're doing. And that's a beautiful thing. I think that is really worth talking about.
Mm,
It's not it's not a black mark or a gray mark. It's just normal. But I think we're talking about a futuristic organization. And
I agree.
yeah,
I agree.
so I
Yeah.
want to just quickly here tell you about what LinkedIn. LinkedIn measures everything. So um, they're in touch with me, and they're watching my posts and who's reading the posts and for how long and who are they and where are they. So and then they send me reports once a month. Who's looking at your stuff? And who are these people? Where are they? And so recently, just month of December, which is usually a kind of a strange month. You'd think it's highly productive, but in many cases it's not because of year-end tax prep, year-end reporting, uh, counseling sessions, one of them, feedback, they call it, feedback or feed forward. So more than 50% of the viewer audience of the recent posts that I have done, including videos, including posts that go on LinkedIn, and the placement of my YouTube videos, which this will become one of, on LinkedIn to get to a business market, huge business market. Uh,
Mm,
51% are in quote unquote senior level positions within companies having more than 1,000 employees worldwide. Right. A smaller percentage of the same category in companies having 10,000 or more employees. But that's so 51% or so of all audience are in LinkedIn reported to be in senior level positions in companies having more than 1,000 employees. That's the leadership market that everybody
mm.
should want. And I'm really blessed to have access to that. But it's not because I have access to it. It's because the quality of the show that I'm producing and distributing, like this one will be. This will be a go-to watch because of the sensitivity of the topic. Now, we're not going to gaslight it, to use your word. We're going to just talk about what is, not about any lies or any BS. Rest assured. So the other quickly here. So 51% are in senior level positions in large companies. That means a lot of employees, not only in the US, but international. So who are these people? Where are they living? Where are they working? Okay, here's the December numbers, according to LinkedIn. The biggest audience location is in the Northeast, eastern part of the US and Canada, Toronto, New York, Boston, all the way down the coast, Atlanta, Miami. That's it. That is more than half of all the corporate audience is located in those places. But the number two is really interesting. And that is London and Dublin. Okay. And a lot of that is because most US corporations, larger corporations, have a London office. And so that's the bridge right there. But then there's a whole bunch of companies in Greater London and Dublin. You know, Dublin grew fast the past 10 years because of Brexit. You know, companies who were in London, they just went to Dublin because that's the EU right there. They speak English for the most part. And so rather than go to Amsterdam, which is also a big center for that, it came over by Brexit. And of course, Geneva is smaller, but it's the London, Dublin access. And then the third largest group, now these are large groups of audience, business audience, and it's California, of course. So San Francisco, Silicon Valley is huge. And LA South to where I am on the Mexican border, that's California. In between this farmland and mountains. So that's huge, you know. So when you think of tech, entertainment, media, anything related to consumerism, it's California. And now we have lots of readers in Texas and Chicago and wherever, but the huge impact are senior level within companies having more than 1,000 employees. Number one. Number two, where are they? The number one market is where you think in Eastern North America, okay, and in the big cities. And number two is the spinoff, London, Dublin, huge, and California, huge. Okay, and doesn't mean that Barcelona doesn't have any audience. It does, but it's small. Yeah. So when I sell advertising space and sponsorships in my programs, which I do every day, that's what I tell them. Now, this program, I think, now I'm not going to send it out until you approve it. Okay, and you'll get it later in my day, which will be midnight for you probably. So take a look at it, and if there's anything wrong with it, we can kill it and redo it. But I think you're going to like it because it's been sincere.
It was a great conversation.
And
yeah, thank you.
It goes deep, and there's a lot to learn. I am blessed to have you on the show. I think what you're doing is unique, and obviously it's needed. And I've been watching the growth. It's just, it's been terrific. The growth is
Thank
because
you.
of how you do it. And that's why, in my role as editor of Global Business News, I feel it appropriate to call you communicator. Congratulations.
Thank you. Privileged, truly, truly, Ed, privileged and honored. And I love what I do.
Thanks for trusting.
You're a bright light. You're a bright light in our industry.
You are. You know, I said that thing yesterday when you were commenting with somebody else, and the conversation and your words, your use of language, and the expression, it was, I know, I just thought of the butterfly just flying around.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's you.
Am
So,
I the butterfly in that example? Am I
yes,
carrying them through flight? Yeah, I
yes.
love that when you said butterfly. Or a ladybird. Ladybird is quite significant for me. Mm, love it.
Come back.
I will. So good to see you. Thank you for having me again. And I'll
Thank
look
you
forward
for
to seeing you
sharing
soon.
some really important information.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, let's end the problem by communicating about what it is.
Truly important. Yeah. Somebody needs to be the courageous voice, and I'm happy to take that on.
Great. Thank you. Bye bye.
All right, bye, Ed.